Here's a demo of riding virtual tracks on RideCave. When you come to RideCave, you can select the Tracks tab and choose from 17 different velodromes from across the world. Here I'll go ahead and open Indianapolis, and we can see track information, including its difficulty, location, surface, banking. You can see any records on this track, including overall records and personal bests. Nobody's ridden this track yet. And then you can also see conditions. RideCave has a physics engine that takes into account air density, wind speed, surface materials, etc. to determine what speed the rider is traveling at. So if you go to do a 200-mile record on an outdoor track, you might get a different speed than that of an indoor track, and that's what makes different tracks more difficult. And so how this works is when you're ready to ride a track, you come to the track detail information and you set the ride settings. Now, there's a few different types of ride settings for tracks. The first three are dynamic training modules. And if you select mixed, what we'll do is create a block set of laps for you based on a variety of workouts. And so here for 30 minutes, you can see we put you into an endurance phase after a short roll-up, and then you enter a set of fly sprints. As you change the duration, the makeup and duration of the blocks change as well. Here you can see that for 45 minutes, we introduce a chase phase with a period of cooldown in between. And likewise, if you go all the way to 90 minutes, you'll see the most complex workouts, which here we have roll-up, cool-down, endurance, cool-down, fly sprints, cool-down, a block of chase, catch and recovers, a period of cool-down, and then a points simulation with a couple of sprints followed by cool-down at the end. And the same is true for an endurance and sprint types, and I'm not going to spend as much time on those, but here you can see a 90-minute sprint session, which would be quite a bit, but it's dynamic and the workout adapts based on the time, so we give you a little bit more cooldown in between. And for this sprint, we have a fly block followed by a chase block followed by a fly. That's quite a bit, but you might want to do it, and you can always shorten the duration if you want a less intense workout. The other type here in standard is free ride, and free ride we just set a set of laps for you and you control the power depending on however you want to work out or ride the track. And coming soon will be different race types from Elimination, Madison, Scratch, and Curran. Those are all in development. So let's go ahead and see how this works. I'm going to select mixed and I'll keep it on 60 minutes. And here I have a training simulator because I'm recording this demo and I'm not on a trainer. So I went ahead and just started the trainer, and you can pretend like I'm pedaling right now and I have a heart rate monitor on. The heart rate monitor that is the simulator isn't accurate, so just ignore the steady state heart rate. All right, so let's get started. I'm pedaling now and I'm in Indianapolis. I can see the details here in the top. I see the target power, my active power and cadence, and then speed and distance. I have time remaining and time that has gone by, and then I have my heart rate and my average heart rate. On the right here is your lap panel, and you can see all the laps in this particular session. We'll get to that in a moment and tell you more about how that helps you ride. Now you might have seen this button light up. It looks like we got a record here. And so anytime you get a record, this will light up. And you can see we got another one. And these are easy records because nobody has ridden this track before. So we'll continue to get records as we ride this track, and as the speed increases, this will continue to be set. So I'm going to hide that for right now and talk a little bit about the active track view. Here you have your current lap time, and it's measured down to milliseconds. We have some pretty sophisticated physics engine and interpolation mathematics to make this extremely accurate. Here you have your meters, and this is your cumulative active meters. And you'll notice two indicators on the track oval, 500 meter and 200 meters. These tick marks show you where the record keeping is taking place. And they allow you to better pace or train based on different durations and intervals. So if you're shooting for a 200-meter record, you can find the 200-meter tick mark on the track, which actually here happens to line up perfectly with the 500 meters. So it's a little hard to see, but once we pass that, you'll see it move again, and that allows you to aim for certain records. At the bottom is our power graph. You can see our power in green and our heart rate in red. And then we have our watt controls here, which we have the lap scope setting. So if I want to just update all of the watts, the target power in our lap panel, I can go ahead and just hit this button, and you can see that all of these just changed a different color and all of their watts increased. So that applies to all watts. But sometimes you might just want to change the next lap. You know you're going to want to go into a sprint lap, so you might update this next lap to be a zone 6, in which case when you get to the lap, it will transition from zone 2 to zone 6. So we'll see here in a second. There you go. I'm now in a sprint lap, and this is probably going to set some new records. So we'll open this up. You can see, yep, these times start changing because I'm setting new records. Ordinarily, that's probably not going to happen very often, and setting records will be a less common occurrence than it is in this demo. Okay, and you can change this to happen to up to 8 different laps, and then usually I just leave it on the all laps setting and change it on the fly. And so that is riding the track. And what I want to show you next is a little bit more about this laps panel. So here I'm going to skip ahead to this funny looking lap here. So on tracks that might be very long, it doesn't make sense to put somebody into a zone 7 sprint for an entire lap. Zone 7 for 333 meters is quite a bit. So what we do in those cases is we will give you a split lap, which functions as basically a build-up to a larger sprint. And we can split the tracks up to 4 different splits. So if you're on a really long track like Roubaix, you might get 4 different splits leading up to a zone 7 sprint. So here you're going to see it split, and you see zone 6 and zone 7. I'm in my zone 6 right now, and in a moment you'll see us transition into zone 7 as a sort of kicker. You could imagine this mimics a sprint to the finish, perhaps in a points race or a sprint race. I'll just let that finish for a second. You can see the tick marks updating. Maybe I'm shooting for that 500 meter mark. Okay, and that was the sprint split lap, and you can see we get an immediate cool down followed by some endurance laps. I'll just scroll down and show you the rest of these laps. You can easily indicate the power zones and the type of laps. And at any time when you're ready to end the ride, you can click end down here. You can also pause, and if you need to modify settings, you can go ahead and do that by clicking the settings button. I'll go ahead and end this ride. And here you get a ride summary with the details of your ride, and you get a list of all the records that you might have set for the ride, number of laps you've completed, and your nice power chart. That is track riding on RideCave.